Welcome to She Sells Radio. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today. And my guest and I connected, I think, a couple months ago. I was super honored to come on his podcast and just immediately felt like, when you connect with someone where you just feel there's this much deeper sense of who they are and deeper sense of purpose. And it's not all about the entrepreneurial flash and fluff that we just get so bombarded by online. I was so just drawn to his energy and appreciated who he was. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation today. And we're going to be talking about spirituality of money and some of his personal journey too. So let me share with you a bit about my guest. Kevin Wathey is a life and business strategist, an international retreat leader. He's actually going to be hosting a retreat coming up in Morocco about a year from now, which we were just talking about in the pre-chat. And I am like trying to figure out a way I can go right away. He's also a serial entrepreneur. And he says, unlike most who begin a profitable career only to have a moment of doubt send them down a path of self-discovery, Wathey was sent down a path of self-discovery that led him to creating a profitable career, helping others do the same and find fulfillment in the process. And I do want to speak just a bit to his backstory here too, and we can talk about it more on the show. But having suffered the devastating loss of his mother when he was just 17, he's devoted his life to answering a profound question, which is, in what capacity or to what extent do we control our own destiny? He founded Synchronicity Group in 2017, which is now a multi-divisional organization with a singular mission to redefine what it means to care for another individual by providing them the education necessary to live a fulfilling life. And it's this mission that allows him to live a life his mother would have been proud of. I got to tell you, Ken, I'm like reading that. I'm already tearing up. Like it's so powerful. Thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could share, we're going to get into spirituality of money and what that looks like. And it's a topic, it's probably the number one topic my audience likes to hear about. I know when we ask people what they want to hear more about, it's almost always around that. But obviously your life and kind of your origin story shaped so much of who you are and what this question is that you ask about controlling our own destinies. Can you share some of your backstory that led you to creating Synchronicity Group and what drives you today?
Absolutely. So we got to take it back a little bit. We hinted at it a little bit in the bio there, and thank you for that. It's interesting that the things that happen to us, when we perceive them to happen to us, become problems. But when we find things that happen for us, they become opportunities for growth. And when I was 16 at the time, my mom was 46. She had just run the Tempe Town Lake Triathlon outside ASU in Arizona. She had low back pain, thought she had hurt herself in the race, got an MRI, had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, metastasized to every major organ, given her 3 months to live. That was December 2009. January 2010, she sat my sister and I have a younger sister down on the couch, and she said that she was going to outlive the prognosis by a year and spend another Christmas with us. She passed away December 26th.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And a great start of the podcast. Tears already.
Me too. Yeah.
And it did two things. It sent me down a very dark path initially, which I'm happy to go into and we can discuss if you like. But the other thing that it did was it gave me that question: to what extent or in what capacity do we design our destiny? Because if she was able to consciously choose the date of her last breath, what else are we capable of, and what else is our mind capable of that we don't consciously know or perceive? And really the only limitations we have in life are our own expectations. And the expectations we place on things determine where we go, how we show up, who we speak to, who we associate with. So when you remove that expectation, and the vast majority of people don't even know where that limit is, because everything that they do, say, feel, hear, think is all based on someone else's perception of them, not their own perception of themselves.
Wow. I'm just kind of soaking that in right now. Yeah, you're absolutely right. How do you start to, in your own life, how do you start to notice the expectations you have placed on yourself and where you're putting limits on that?
It's a phenomenal question. And if I had a very simple answer, it would make things a lot easier. I think that what we're told to run from. Fear and desire and envy and jealousy are actually emotions labeled incorrectly. And so let me explain it this way, and this might help kind of make it a little bit more help people comprehend it a little bit. So if me and you go on a roller coaster, I say it's an exhilarating experience, you say it's a fearful experience. We're having the same experience and we're feeling the same emotions. We're just labeling them differently. Therefore, our body is experiencing that moment differently. I'm going to produce higher levels of dopamine and serotonin, and I'm going to feel more connected to you. Yeah. You're going to produce more cortisol and actually increase the levels of cancer in your body, which are always present, just by how you are telling yourself to experience that moment.
Wow.
So if we take a step back and to kind of answer your question, when we look at things, I would say the underlying thing is to ask why we think that this is how we feel, or why do we feel this way about the thing? Because if we can figure out why we feel a certain way, we can then deconstruct that emotion to figure out where it started. And then you can reconstruct it in a way where it actually leads you towards where you want to go, where you're choosing to go, rather than somehow you're conditioned to go to, or you've been told this is the way things are. An interesting piece, and I saw a video a while back. It was a compilation of Kanye and Steve Jobs talking about the simulation, going back and forth. And it was really interesting, but there was validity in what they said. And basically Kanye was talking about how the simulation that we believe that we're living in, or some people like break the simulation.
Right.
It's not that there's something else outside of us, which there might be, we don't know. But the way he spoke about it was that we're told the way things are growing up. And that then creates these constraints that this is the way things should be. So if you go outside of that box, you're now breaking the simulation because you're not subscribing to what the majority would do. And if you look at an entrepreneurial journey, entrepreneurship, like negatives in life are rewarded by society much more than positives.
Speak more to that.
And in order to become successful in what you want to do, you need to go against the grain to pave your own path. But it's much easier to show up and complain than to show up and do the work.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. So being a victim, suffering, you're saying that's rewarded more in society because people relate to that. They'll commiserate with you.
Misery loves company. And it's a choice, and you can see it too. So you'll go into a grocery store and you'll walk up, how's your day? It's all right. Yeah. Very, very accepted. But if I went into the grocery store and like, how's your day? Fucking incredible, man. You'd be like, what's the wrong with you?
I'm curious for you, and I love how we're just going to pop around here. This is fun. I thought this was going to happen, and this is good. Do you find yourself sometimes downplaying how good things are for you? And I ask that because my life is not a constant high. There's every day, there's all the things, right? But I do even find when I feel like things are just like, you're in alignment, right? Things are flowing. There can still be this hesitation to say it to somebody else who I don't think is going to be able to relate, or I think somebody else will like judge me for it. So I notice that in myself. That's a limit I'm putting on myself, right? Have you broken past that yet, or does that show up for you too?
It depends on the people I'm surrounding myself with. Because the people that you surround yourself with, if you share something incredible with them and they're not on the same wavelength, they will take it as that you're bragging, or they will take it as if you're trying to like show off in some way. But other people who are on the same, like my closest friends who are on the same path, who are like aligned with their mission as well, if I win, they win. And if they win, I win. And it's a mutually shared experience. It's not one or the other, because it's not about competition. It's about collaboration. Right. Because the only thing and only person that we're ever competing with is ourselves yesterday. So when you take that, and this kind of goes into my belief too, is that we're born complete. Religion, society, different things tell us that we're incomplete, depending on your interpretation of them. And you can go into multiple different paths here. But the thing is that if you're born incomplete, then you need to find something outside of yourself to be complete. But what if you were born complete and now the only thing you need to be is more of yourself?
Yeah. 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 I got chills when you said that. I believe that wholeheartedly too. So this question of how much do we control our own destiny? How much has that, obviously that shaped your life? And I'd love to speak to that a bit more. And then we can kind of weave that in with money and spirituality and how it all ties together for you.
So the question has taken the question's always been the same, but there's been different kind of entrance points into the question and things that I've uncovered throughout my life. First one being, and it's probably the most recent one, is that we don't move through life, we expand into it. And what I mean by that is, in order to believe that you need to move through life would signify that there is an end goal to get to, which means that you are not complete until you accomplish or achieve something. But if you're born complete, that then contradicts that belief. So instead, you expand into life, therefore you become more. And by becoming more, you can be more, because going right here to like the spiritual side of wealth building, you never get what you want. You only get who you are.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So in order for you to get more, you must do something different or be something different. And when you start to be something different, you expand into life in a way that you never did previously.
How do you, I love that. And I want to ask you, I feel like this is going to go down like a Eckhart
We
Tolle
got,
path
and I
here,
can go
right?
back to the question piece too,
No,
because there's a,
oh yeah. Okay. So speak to the question. Then I want to ask you something about what you just said.
go for that, because the question piece is a
It's a
story.
different direction. Okay. So reconciling, this is actually something I've never really thought about. So I'm kind of just now bringing it up as we talk, but I'm curious to get your perspective on this. Reconciling that we are born already complete, and yet there's also this desire to expand and to become more. So if we're already complete, how do we reconcile that with the desire to become more? That's
So
big life questions, right?
100%. And
Yeah.
the fascinating piece is that everything that will ever be created in life already has been. It just hasn't been assembled yet. So before the iPhone was the iPhone, did we have to invent or create any new pieces for the iPhone? No.
Yeah.
We had to assemble them in a new way to do something we've never done before.
Got it.
Everything that we have in the universe has already been created. We're not creating anything new. Depending on your definition of invention, you could say nothing's ever invented, only discovered.
Interesting. Yeah.
So if we say that, then you are 100% everything that you need to be or will ever be. But society and all these conditions get placed on top of us, and it's actually peeling off those conditions to become more of who we are, rather than trying to find something outside of ourselves to allow us to be more. Wow. So I like to think of life, like most people think of life as an onion. You know, you're peeling back the layers to get to the core. Well, what if we flipped it? And this kind of goes to Simon Sinek's Start With Why, is what if we flipped it and we said, you're a baseball, not an onion. Your core is complete. The world places all these rubber bands on top of you and then wraps you in a nice shiny white leather, stitches you up with some red ribbon, and presents you to the world and says, this is who you are. But what happens when I cut through everything and I get to the solid core? That's the truth of who I actually am.
Interesting. Wow. I know in my own life, everything shifted when this is actually just a few years ago, I said, like, what would it be like to experience the fullness of who I am? And just started approaching life that way. And a lot started to change really fast with that. So thank you for going down that rabbit hole question.
Well, it's when we start to ask better questions, you start to get better answers too. So to what you just said as well, you're starting to ask yourself a more profound question. So you're now getting a more profound answer. And life, that's how our brain works. It's a series of subconscious questions that we ask ourselves. And this can segue into the story as well. The subconscious questions we ask ourselves dictate how we act, think, speak, show up, and everything that we do in our lives. So this is something I learned from the Tony Robbins world, which I was pretty heavily invested in last year. And what I learned, or what he taught, was that there is a singular primary question that is in your subconscious that dictates everything that you do in your life. I discovered that old primary question for me was, how can I become important again? Because when I lost my mom, I lost my importance.
Wow.
So everything that I did in my life, I played semi-professional hockey. for importance. I went and acted professionally for importance. I wanted to initially start a company for importance. I wanted to work up the corporate ladder to be important. So
Wow.
everything that I did in my life was for an external gain, which it was why I was so unhappy internally. And everything that I did was like grasping for something outside of myself. And when I was grasping, I needed to do something to fulfill myself internally, which was why I drank, which was why I went out all the time, which is why I did drugs, which is why I did all the things that I did to mask that feeling rather than allowing it to pass or expand into it and use it for my own potential.
Sure.
So then once you recognize the question, because the first step in any change is awareness. So you have to recognize where you're at presently. Then once I recognized that and I started to have these beliefs that shifted where I was like, well, what if we start to think about this completely differently? What if everything that we've been told up to this point is wrong? And now we have the opportunity to rewrite the book. So then the question I shifted it to was, how can I embody gratitude in all that I already am?
Oh, wow.
So now just for a second, think of the two questions. How can I become important again? And how can I embody gratitude in all that I am? Think about the choices that are made just from having those two questions, like two pillars.
Right.
Where does the trajectory of your life go with one, and where does it go with the other?
Wow. So the question, this is so interesting. I've never heard it presented this way before. And this is for some context, because you shared this with me when we spoke last time. You did Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership, right? Last year.
Correct.
So that's like the high. So you got to learn from and be mentored by just some of the most brilliant minds in the world, which is why I appreciate you bringing this to us, because this is powerful stuff. So everyone has their own unique primary question in
Correct.
their subconscious. How do we uncover what it is for us?
There's a process that you go through. So it's not just like a one-time thing and you're like, found it, let's pull it out. There's a process that you go through. It's something that I've seen Tony do really well. And then it's something, surprisingly enough, that we had actually used and incorporated on our retreats prior to me ever even attending a Tony Robbins event in the past. And then I got there, I saw this, I was like, wait a second. I was on to something 5 years ago. Where did I come up with this from? Yeah. So there's a process. It's something that we do throughout. We have an 8-day curriculum that you go through. So if you go on one of our international retreats, it's an 8-day, 7-night curriculum called Align Your Purpose. And there's a different theme and experience and activity each day designed to pull you through pull you through to get you to the point where you're actually then in alignment with who you truly are, not who you think you should be.
Wow. That's incredible. So obviously,
we've had people start businesses, quit jobs, like the most profound one, and I feel like this will resonate too, the most profound one, and the understanding that often it's the ancillary benefit from people that serve the biggest blessing in life. And it's not what we thought we were going for, but what we actually got served. It's like, it's like you get sold what you want, but then you really get what you need. And the very first retreat I ran, after about 3 months after, and I was also not still in the greatest headspace. After this first retreat, I went on like a week-long bender because I didn't know how to handle that energy at that point in my life, where it was like, should not feel this good. Was literally the words going through my head. 3 months after that, I get a letter from one of the girls who had attended that retreat, basically saying that retreat was her, and this is my first ever retreat. Saying that retreat was a last-ditch effort. She had been struggling with an eating disorder her entire life, didn't know where to turn, didn't know what to do, and this was it. Like, this retreat was it. She came for yoga, to take the yoga classes, but what she got was she got to see a group of other people sitting around a family dinner table and saw their relationship with food, and it changed her relationship with food. She now has her dream job. She now is traveling the world and insanely happy. And that was one of the first pieces where I was like, what is it that I actually want in life? Like, what do I really want? And it's to see people operating at their peak, to see people in that flow state at the top where nothing else matters and they're fully embodied in themselves. And that's in entrepreneurship, that's in business, that's in music, it's in every niche market, whatever you want it to be. But it's uncovering all of the shit that's prevented you from being that way your whole life and coming back to that state that is uniquely you.
Gosh, that's so powerful. So obviously it is a process, right? And it's not an Instapot type of thing. I think as everything good in life is not. For that question, I'm so curious about this, because that seems like that could also be the crux, like the core of almost every one of our limiting beliefs. I'm just extrapolating here and guessing that they all kind of stem from this same theme. So
Correct.
is part of it starting to just really look at, like, what are the commonalities between my limiting beliefs? What are the themes that I see showing up here? And you'll start to find what that core underlying question is.
Correct. And
Okay.
it's kind of like you find the one domino that knocks all the other dominoes down.
Yeah.
But a great entrance way into this, and something that we do with all of our clients or on all of the retreats as well, is I call it 7 steps to why, or your wealthy why. And so the very first question is like, why do you want to be on this retreat? Or why did you attend this retreat? And then you answer the question to say, well, I want to connect deeper with myself. Well, why do you want to connect deeper with yourself? And you keep going 7 layers deep. And what you'll notice is the first 3 are very superficial. 4 and 5 end up repeating what you said in 1 and 2 because you want to stay on the surface rather than going deeper. And then you realize that you're repeating yourself. And then 6 and 7 go to the core underlying belief that's the real reason that you're actually there.
Wow. Oh,
and if you can do this, A, this is from an alignment perspective in yourself, but B, look at this in entrepreneurship, look at this in sales, look at this in marketing. If you can speak to the core emotion that's underlying that most people are having subconsciously, but they don't actually verbalize consciously, now you can direct them in the way that's going to best serve them. Now you can sell them into what they need to be sold into to get the outcome that they want. Now you can present them with marketing that's going to give them exactly what they need. And it's going to take them down a path that, like, wow, I didn't even know this conversation was going on. And that's why if you've ever read a really good copywriting or seen a really good ad, you're almost triggered to buy in that moment because it's entering a conversation that you're having subconsciously that you're not even consciously aware of.
Yeah. Gosh, that's powerful. That's so powerful. I'm going to spend some time with that on my own to kind of dig in and uncover what it is. So, Kevin, this is so good. I want to spend a little bit of time speaking about the spiritual side of wealth and how you got interested in that, and some of the, obviously we could spend hours talking about it. We don't have hours, but some of the core maybe beliefs around that have really shaped your life and experiences that have shaped your life in that area. I'd love for you to speak to that.
I think it goes back to, we don't get what we want, we get who we are, is one of the biggest pieces. And to think of your bank account as a lagging indicator of your beliefs, your actions, and your decisions. So everything that you do in your life determines where that goes, where that scale goes. Does it go up? Does it go down? Do you get to a point where you now feel comfortable, so then you go on a spending spree to pull yourself back down to uncomfortability? Or do you live in a state of uncomfortability and then have to find a way to go back up? Two of the biggest things that I learned in this was that, one, once you go to the next level in terms of how much money you have, learn to sleep on it, because your body needs to know what it's like to wake up with that much money in your possession. And I had someone share that with me, and I was like, wow, I've never thought of it that way, where our body doesn't know fact from fiction. It doesn't know imagined from not. Right. So when we wake up, we're in a patternized state, and the patterns dictate what we do. And most people just live a series of patterns, which we'll talk about emotions in a second here too, a series of patterns. So what happens is you get to another level, but then you subconsciously pull yourself back down to where you feel comfortable, even though it may be an uncomfortable situation. So say your bank account always has $10,000 in it, and you just made a sale, you go to 30,000.
Right.
Well, what are you going to do? Do you consciously step back and say, let me sit on this, let me allow my body to feel what it's like to have more money now? Or do you go, oh, I can go buy this now, I can get this now, I got this, I got this, I got this, and now you're at 5,000, and you're like, shit, I got to work really hard to get back to the 10.
Interesting. Interesting. I've never thought about it like that.
Because
It's
think of
not,
it,
yeah, go
here's
ahead.
here's a reframe for it too. You can always find a way to make the money when it's for someone else, not yourself. Have you ever had a
Mm,
bill pop up or
yeah,
taxes or a car accident or something that was unexpected? You always find a way to make it work.
right.
And then you work really hard to get back to that place. But why can't you do that if it's for yourself? Why can't you say, okay, I align with this. This is where I want to get to. You don't have the same hunger, the same drive because it's for something outside of yourself, which means you're placing more importance on something outside of you than you yourself,
Ah,
which means you're not actually present.
yeah. So if we want to align our body with that amount before it's come in, is that visualization? Is that pretending like going to bed at night, like visualizing what that was like, feeling what that was like, or is there something else that we should do?
Visualization, I would say, is the cream of the crop. And if you
Okay.
study Joe Dispenza or anyone like
Yeah.
that and you go down that path, he would say creating from quantum rather than matter.
Yes. Mhm.
And essentially, for anyone who doesn't know Joe Dispenza, phenomenal guy. Read the book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself as like an entranceway into his world. So we can create from two things. We can create from quantum, which would be imagination, which is the energetic field,
Yeah.
or you can create from matter, which is tangible, like things that you already have.
Yeah.
The problem is that if you create from matter, what you're doing is you're limiting yourself to a time frame that is self-imposed by you, rather than creating from energy, which you can then collapse time into the given moment, because if you can imagine it, you can do it. And if you can do it, you can achieve it. Which is
Mm,
why I love when people come to me and they have these ideas that they're like, I have no idea how I'm going to get this done or how I'm going to
yeah.
do this. But the thing is, you wouldn't have been able to imagine it if you didn't have the ability to achieve it.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So trust
Oh,
yourself and trust that you're right on time. And that's been a huge lesson for myself because I'm always like, do, go,
right.
more, expand, expand, expand. I'm not learning fast enough. And it's this, I want to be somewhere else. And I'm in a really interesting, like on the front end of this trip that's coming up. I'm in a very interesting place in my life where I want to call this like this season of my life learning to enjoy,
I love that.
because I've always been like, make the sale, ring the bell. Okay, next one.
Right.
Like it's always been going to the next thing, which I like and I appreciate because you're expanding and you're growing. But what I think what I needed to do for a long time, or not what I needed, but what I wanted to do for a long time was redefine what success meant to me. Because for a long time, and this is a phenomenal practice for going back into the beliefs and what you actually
Sure.
believe, is take words that you say a lot or you subscribe to and figure out what your definition of that word is. Because you can change the definition. So my definition of success for a long time was $100 million business, dog, always traveling, private jet, all the cars, all the girls, like this completely obscene lifestyle.
Yeah.
But what I realized is by believing that is actually a very limited life, because I was subscribing to one singular point of view rather than allowing myself to be expansive.
Yeah.
So now I reframed and redesigned what success meant to me. And it's continuously expanding without ruining the present.
Continuously expanding without ruining the present. Speak
Which
to that a
means that
little bit more. Yeah.
I can do that in any moment. I can walk down to the beach and lay down and start thinking about something, and I'm expanding, but I'm also presently enjoying the sun on my face. I don't have to be doing something in order to feel fulfillment. And this is something that a pattern, a cycle that I've caught myself in, is that I needed to be working towards something, which is not wrong, but it became an addiction in and of itself, where I needed to be working towards something. Otherwise, I didn't feel fulfilled. And it was because I became addicted to growth rather than being able to have balance on the two sides. And balance is not a word that I like a lot because I feel like a lot of people mistreat balance as a reason for mediocrity. But I think that at least my present interpretation of it is I'm okay with balancing the macro, and the micro is where I struggle still. So what I mean by that is I can go in 3, 6, 9, 12-month sprints on work. Well, then I not burnt out, but like I need to change. So then I say, I'm going to do this. And now I balance the macro on this side. And I feel like presently the past 2 years, I balls to the wall, crushed it.
Yeah.
And now I'm in this place where I want to experience and enjoy and like appreciate the finer things. And then I think the beautiful part of that is that once I've had both sides, then now I can bring the two together and now I'll have an entirely different view and perception of what balance means to me.
So by the micro, you mean like the day-to-day, the present
Correct.
moment? Okay. Got it. Which I think is, I mean, who knows? It could be much bigger than this, but my current perception of it is that is really our task in life, is to learn to do that. And I think for many people, probably they never arrive at that realization. For many, it's later in life. So what a great thing to be thinking about earlier on to begin incorporating. You're gonna say something previously about emotions as it pertains to money. So I want to speak to that, and then we'll tell people a bit about what you're launching. This is great. Go ahead.
100%. So I would say the understanding here is that going back to people live in patterns. We find patterns as human beings because it's what has protected us and propelled us towards continuing growing evolutionarily speaking. We find patterns that keep us alive and we continue to do them, which is why we find comfort. And when you find comfort, you stay in that comfort because you know you're going to be safe. Well, we haven't needed the vast majority of people. There are people still on the planet who do, but the vast majority of Western civilization hasn't needed to feel that same level of protection, but our brains still tell us that we need to. Therefore, we find comfort, we stay in it, and we stop growing. And there's no stagnation. You're growing or you're dying. Yeah. That's it. So if you get comfortable, what you're doing is you're actually declining. So it's finding these patterns in your life and constantly switching them up to focus on how you can grow and how you can expand. To give you the example on emotions, there's roughly 4,400 human emotions, 2,200 positive, 2,200 negative. Guess how many emotions the average person experiences?
Just going to say, I can't imagine that there are 4,400. So I don't know.
There's different
20?
Colors of them.
No, I know. It's impressing me thinking about it. Yeah.
12.
12. Wow.
8 of them being negative.
That's not surprising, unfortunately. Yeah.
8 of them being negative, 4 of them being positive. And what this means, and I can speak to how this showed up in my life as well, but what this means is that you going to get an ice cream cone and you going surfing could be both excitement or fulfillment, but it's 2 different emotions. You're just labeling them the same. Therefore, you actually have a very limited emotional bandwidth or very limited emotional spectrum of what you're able to operate on. And the way this showed up in my life and the way I recognize this was that I always believed I was like a 0 or 100 person. I'm either all in or I'm all out, or fuck it, why would we do it? And what I recognized was that was a very limited point of view, because I had either extremely fulfilled or I had a disempowered state. There was nothing in between. But there's all this color and there's all this life and there's all this experience and there's all these things that we prevent ourselves from experiencing because we limit ourselves based on the expectation we think we should have. This fills me up. I'm at 100%. And the way I discovered this is, again, everything happening for you rather than to you.
Right.
When I was in California in March, and I slept in. So I was like judging myself for sleeping in. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for the long run today. I'm going to run a half marathon. I was in Marina Del Rey. I'm going to run the Santa Monica Pier, come back up, and then all the way down half marathon. Put on some David Goggins, hit the boardwalk, and just crushed it. Felt amazing. Had shit in my diary too. So in my journal, I wrote, had shin splints, fuck it, ran anyway. Okay. I fly home that day, feel amazing. The next day, wake up, my leg hurts really bad, but I'm like, it'll be okay. The next day I wake up, I cannot stand.
Wow.
Shin splints turned into a stress fracture, turned into a bone marrow infection. They told me I wasn't going to be able to run for 6 months.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
All because I said I'm 0 or 100. And I didn't have the ability at that moment to give myself some varying degrees. And I understand discipline. that's one thing. And I understand consistency, that's another thing. But to judge yourself on the way that you show up in that moment where it actually prevents you from experiencing something else was life telling me and the universe telling me, hey, we got something else in store for you. And if you're in your head and you're so stuck on 100, you're not going to see these other things that we're opening up. We're going to physically slow you down.
Wow. Wow. It's such a, again, the word balance, right? But it to some extent it is of the growth and the expansion, and then yet also giving yourself the grace to like be good enough in the moment. It's the macro and the micro, right? So
Grace is
yeah.
1000% the word.
Oh my gosh. It's something I'm still learning a lot every single
Me
day. Because that
too.
conditioning, it goes so deep. It goes so deep. But man, that's incredible. Tell us, go ahead.
With all of this too, I don't want to say that there's one that's better or the other. That's not what I'm trying to say at all, because I think that there are times for both. And I think that I mean, from my own perspective, and I've done this, I listen to a podcast and I'm like, he must be right, or that's an interesting way of thinking, or there is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. There's only perception that is also subjective. So everything is subjective for the individual, and it's based on your perception of that thing. So I could be saying this, and what I'm consciously or subconsciously thinking of could be different than how you're taking the same word and subconsciously thinking of it too. So it might not actually work for you in the same way. So it's this like insatiable curiosity to understand why I do what I do, and then beginning to expand upon that. And I want to put that kind of as like a disclaimer, because I've been in that boat too, where it's like, I'll go down this path of what I've heard someone say or what I've heard someone do, or like something like that to figure it out. But the thing that I'm doing is I'm always comparing and contrasting that to my own self purposely, so that I find what works and what doesn't, because I don't believe anyone should ever be fully subscribed to anyone other than themselves. And you should take what works for you and leave the rest.
Yeah, for sure. Which, if we summed up kind of a theme of this conversation, right? It's questioning everything, turning inward, looking at what's true for me, removing the expectations you put on yourself, the self-imposed expectations, and looking at, where does life take me from there, in a very, very abbreviated version of coming full circle. Kevin, this is so great. I feel like we could have like a marathon conversation and just go down some fun rabbit holes and keep going. This is awesome. I love talking about this. Yeah. So I would love if you could take a moment, tell everyone about, take a moment and tell everyone a little bit more about your retreats, and then also about the membership that you got coming out as well, because I know that's going to be great.
Absolutely. So the retreats, we talked a little bit about. The international ones are 8 day, 7 night. We run somewhere between 6 to 8 per year. So Bali, Peru, Costa Rica, Morocco, Italy, Hawaii are kind of the fixed ones, although sometimes there's 4, and then we'll pick some new locations depending on where we want to go. Solo travelers, couples, people who want to come with friends, we kind of get the whole gamut. And the vast majority of time are focused towards entrepreneurship and business owners. But that's not to neglect or negate or not include someone else in that, because what it's focused on is understanding why you do what you do, so that you can show up as the most authentic version of you coming back from that retreat. So what I like to say is, in entrepreneurship, we help the entrepreneur become their best, so that their business can be its best. But if you think of your life as a business, which every single person here is, and every single person listening is, you need to show up as your best so that you can live your best. And that's the ethos of the retreats.
Yeah, amazing.
What we're presently launching is going to be a new membership. So specifically for entrepreneurs and business owners. And it's really, I noticed the power that the gaining proximity to others had when I was in the Platinum Partnership, and saw just being in a room with people that are operating at a different level as you changed the conversations that you had with others and yourself. So it started to allow you to think in different ways and expand the way that you start to look at the world. So the reason that this kind of came about was when the pandemic hit, we were strictly running retreats. Like, that was the focus. Travel got shut down, so we pivoted online. Then we helped entrepreneurs transition in-person offerings online. That was our focus. The commonality and the common theme that we saw was that the vast majority of entrepreneurs that came to us asking for help believed the beliefs that they had previously that got them to where they are is what's going to get them to where they want to be. They don't recognize that they need to deconstruct past beliefs and reconstruct new empowering ones.
Yeah.
So the membership is meant to do that and be a weekly call, a monthly training. And I'm going to bring on guest speakers. I'm going to have the best of the best, both from the Tony world and from my own network, come either weekly or monthly and speak. There's all of the education that Synchronicity Group offers itself contained in there. There's monthly meditations. There are different tools, trainings, different elements that you can use to help you also find and reach your peak performance. The Wealthy Why worksheet's one of those tools that we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
And then if you are, as long as you're an active member, you also get 20% off all of our retreats for life while you're an active member too. Because the goal is really, and what I've seen is I really want to build a strong community of people where they feel a family, they feel at home. And like I said, going back, we create what we feel we lost. And my first question was, how can I become important again? Well, the reason that I felt that I wasn't important was because I felt like I lost my family. So this is my attempt, and it will be a very successful one, but this is my attempt at recreating the family that I always wanted.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's so powerful. Thank you. And we'll link in the show notes, but if someone wants to go and learn more, where can they find out about the membership?
Absolutely. The first part I would say is we made a quiz to get your present mindset profile and score. So just go to scoremymindset.com and that will give you your score and quiz, and then it will take you to the membership page after you get your results.
Beautiful. Kevin, this is such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was brilliant. So to you, my listener, go check out the quiz. I'm super curious to take it. I know it's going to uncover a lot. And then of course, check out the membership and sign up for that too, if it feels right for you. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for listening in, and I'll see you on our next episode of She Sells Radio.